The air in the sun-drenched living room was thick, not with heat, but with a sudden bone-chilling cold. Minerva Thorne, a woman whose 72 years had been spent pouring her heart and savings into the lives of others, sat across from her beloved granddaughter, Desdemona Vance. Desdemona, all sharp angles and calculated casualness, had just finished explaining the new clause in Minerva's revised will. Minerva had asked Desdemona, a paralegal, to draft a simple amendment ensuring her youngest, less financially stable grandson received a larger share of her estate, primarily the house. "It's a boilerplate protective measure, Grammy," Desdemona said, her voice dripping with the saccharine tone she reserved for her most effective manipulations. She pushed the document across the mahogany table, pointing to a dense paragraph. "The Heirloom Integrity Clause. It simply states that upon your passing, the house must remain in the family for a minimum of 25 years. No immediate sales allowed." Minerva blinked, the ink on the page suddenly blurring. "But I explicitly told you I needed the option to sell, Desdemona. If my health declines and I need in-home care, or if I want to move closer to my sister in Florida, I need that equity. It's my money, darling." Desdemona's veneer of sweetness cracked, revealing a chillingly predatory gleam. "But you won't need to sell, Grammy. You'll be fine right here. Besides," she leaned forward, dropping her voice to a conspiratorial whisper that felt more like a threat, "we all know you're becoming a bit erratic with your money lately. Buying those silly antique lamps, donating too much to that wildlife fund. This clause guarantees the house remains a stable asset, protecting it from your own impulsive tendencies. It protects us." The words, "protecting it from your own impulsive tendencies," didn't just wound Minerva, they detonated an explosion of long-suppressed indignation. This wasn't protection, it was a preemptive power grab, a cage constructed from legal jargon and disguised as affection. Desdemona was not just locking Minerva out of her financial future, she was declaring her mentally unfit to manage her own life to her face. The blatant arrogance, the quiet assumption of superiority, ignited a fire that Minerva hadn't felt since she was a young woman fighting for her own small corner of independence. A heavy silence descended, punctured only by the ticking of the grandfather clock Minerva's late husband, Alastair, had gifted her. Desdemona, mistaking the silence for compliance or confusion, stood up, gathering her expensive handbag. "So glad that's sorted. Just sign the final page, and I'll file the initial draft with the solicitor. No need to worry your pretty little head over it." "No," Minerva said, her voice a low, steady rumble that startled even herself. She looked up, her blue eyes, usually soft and crinkled with good humor, now sharp as flint. "I will not be signing anything today, Desdemona." Desdemona froze, a look of incredulous annoyance replacing her smug smile. "Grammy, don't be dramatic. I have a court deadline. Just sign it." "You heard me," Minerva repeated, rising slowly to her full, formidable height. The years of quiet service and self-sacrifice fell away, revealing the steel beneath. "You have not only fundamentally altered the terms of my instructions, but have had the audacious insolence to imply I am too feeble-minded to manage my own affairs. I built this house, Desdemona. Every brick, every window pane, every dollar invested here is mine. You have just committed the ultimate act of betrayal." The quantification of abuse began the moment Desdemona slammed the front door shut. Minerva walked into the kitchen, gripping the edge of the granite countertop so tightly her knuckles were white. The betrayal was immediate, but the magnitude of the indignation was rooted in decades of selfless contribution. She began to tally the ledger of her life in her mind, assigning a devastating dollar value to her family's exploitation. The down payment for Desdemona's first condo. Desdemona and her husband, Reginald, the primary villains, had needed a leg up. Minerva had liquidated her blue-chip stocks. The cost? $18,000. Reginald's critical investment. A failed, vaguely defined tech venture that needed an angel investor. Minerva had cashed out her late husband's life insurance annuity, a fund specifically earmarked for her retirement healthcare. The cost? $32,000. The low-interest, personal loans. Over the last 5 years, Desdemona had continuously borrowed from Minerva, always promising to repay with her next salary bonus. The total outstanding balance, which Minerva knew would never be recovered, stood at $14,500. The urgent car repairs. The luxury SUV Desdemona insisted on driving. Minerva had paid for 2 engine replacements and countless minor fixes. The cost? $10,500. The cumulative total, the life savings bled dry by a single avaricious branch of her family, was over $75,000, not including the countless hours of childcare, cooking, and emotional support. $75,000. And for that, she was rewarded with a legally binding cage. The humiliation was total. It was not mere ingratitude. It was a calculated financial assault based on the assumption of her senility and dependence. The next morning, Minerva drove to meet her oldest and dearest friend, Eliza Finch, a sprightly woman known for her keen mind and brutal honesty. They met at their weekly coffee shop, but today the casual warmth was replaced by an icy tension. Minerva recounted the previous day's conversation, watching Eliza's face move from shock to cold fury. She's a viper, Minerva. Always has been, but this is predatory, Eliza said, stirring her tea with unnecessary violence. Then, the true stab came. Eliza hesitated, her eyes flickering away. Minerva, I have to tell you something. I had lunch with Beatrice Reynolds last week. She's Reginald's mother's bridge partner. She mentioned you. Minerva braced herself. What did she say? She said Reginald had been speaking seriously about you. He was apparently very concerned. He mentioned to Beatrice that you'd had a recent, severe lapse in judgment with your investments and were showing signs of pronounced, uncharacteristic paranoia. He even used the phrase, "We're worried she's being manipulated by opportunistic charities or maybe even a new friend." Minerva felt the blood drain from her face. The betrayal wasn't private. It was a calculated, public campaign of slander. They hadn't just changed her will. They were laying the groundwork for a conservatorship, systematically undermining her credibility in the community, crafting a narrative of mental decline to justify their imminent legal theft. Her indignation hardened into a resolve colder and sharper than any steel. The game wasn't about money anymore. It was about dignity and survival. They've sealed their fate, Minerva whispered, the words tasting like ash. They have mistaken my generosity for weakness, and my silence for ignorance. That afternoon, the first cut was executed. Minerva was in the middle of cleaning out her seldom-used home office, specifically, transferring old financial records, when her phone rang. It was Reginald. His tone was strained, utterly devoid of the usual hearty pretense. Minerva, thank you for picking up. Listen, something utterly dreadful has happened. An absolute disaster with the Arboretum Fund. We need an immediate transfer. I need you to wire $25,000 to this account, and I promise it's a temporary liquidity issue, and you'll get $30,000 back next month. Minerva, holding a document detailing the liquidation of $12,000 of her bonds to pay for Desdemona's current credit card debt, did not even bother to feign sympathy. The request was a grotesque echo of every financial trauma they had inflicted. Reginald, she said, her voice clear and measured, utterly lacking in the warm, familial cadence he was used to. I'm very sorry to hear about your troubles, but I have some important news for you. Minerva, this is urgent. I don't have time for one of your lectures. Just give me the account numbers. Minerva took a deep, steadying breath, savoring the moment of profound power reversal. The account numbers you will be receiving, she said, her voice now a low, definitive statement, will be from your bank, not mine. Because as of 2 hours ago, Reginald, I froze all access, dissolved all joint accounts, and placed a permanent hold on all future financial transactions concerning my assets. The bank has been informed of a change in my estate plan, and they will no longer process any requests from you or Desdemona. The silence on the line was stunning, a chasm of pure, shocked disbelief. You did what? Reginald stammered, his carefully constructed persona crumbling into a desperate whine. "I took back control of my money," Minerva finished, the victory of the first cut exhilarating. She delivered the final, powerful one-liner. "Consider your leash severed." Reginald's reply was instantaneous and terrifying. The despair was replaced by the cold, vicious anger of an entitled predator whose prey had fought back. "You senile old fool. You think this is over? You think you can just do that? I have a lawyer. You have a clause in your will that proves you can't make rational decisions about the house. You have just declared war, Minerva, and I promise you, you'll be making all your future decisions through a court-appointed administrator. Enjoy the silence now. It's the last peace you'll have before we strip you of everything." Reginald's threat, raw and venomous, hung in the air long after Minerva disconnected the call. It was the confirmation she needed. The house clause wasn't an oversight or a protective measure. It was the cornerstone of their plan to declare her incompetent and seize control of her substantial asset. Her shock solidified into a fierce determination. The confrontation came 2 days later. Minerva was tending to her prized rhododendrons when a luxury sedan, polished to a sickening sheen, pulled into her driveway. Out stepped Reginald, wearing a suit far too expensive for his purported financial distress, flanked by a man in a pale grey silk suit. The lawyer. Sterling Holloway, the lawyer, looked exactly like the kind of professional who charged by the word and specialized in exploiting the elderly. Desdemona remained inside the car, watching, a study in cold, calculated malice. "Minerva, we need to talk rationally," Reginald said, his voice now a booming performance of concern. "This nonsense with the accounts is unsustainable. It's causing real problems. Sterling here is just going to explain the reality of the situation." Minerva met them at the front door, standing rigidly in the entranceway. She did not invite them in. "There is nothing rational about attempted theft, Reginald," she stated. Sterling Holloway stepped forward, holding a manila folder with a sense of practiced authority. "Mrs. Thorne, with all due respect, your financial decisions have become, shall we say, inconsistent with prudent estate management. We have strong evidence, including documentation concerning the heirloom integrity clause, that your granddaughter inserted, at your explicit instruction, I might add, indicating a clear and present danger to the primary asset of the estate." Minerva felt a cold rush of fury. "You are twisting her treachery into my failing? The document explicitly shows her handwriting in the margin suggesting that clause, not mine. And I signed nothing. The initial draft is what matters, Mrs. Thorne," Holloway countered smoothly. "The fact is, you are threatening to sell the family home, an act which, given your advanced age and the volatile housing market, could be viewed as financially reckless. We have initiated proceedings to petition the court for a temporary conservatorship of the estate to ensure your finances are managed responsibly until a full psychiatric review can be conducted." The words hung like weights. Conservatorship of the estate. They wanted to strip her of her legal autonomy, trapping her in her own house while they controlled her money. Minerva looked past Holloway to Reginald, whose face was a mixture of strained paternal concern and barely contained triumph. She focused her gaze, not on his eyes, but on his smug smirk. "You have mistaken my home for a public forum," Minerva said, her voice shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the effort to restrain her rage. "You are trespassing. You have committed elder financial abuse and are now attempting institutional fraud. The legal advice you've been given is based on a lie fabricated by your avarice. I am fully competent, and I am documenting every word you say." She then delivered her command, with absolute finality. "You will leave my property now. If you step 1 foot over this threshold, I will call the police and file a restraining order simultaneously. Get off my land." Reginald sputtered. "Minerva, don't be ridiculous. We are trying to help you." "Your version of help is theft, Reginald," Minerva retorted, and before either man could speak again, she slammed the heavy oak door shut, the resounding thud echoing the decisive blow she had just struck against their escalating aggression. The next hours were a frantic search. Minerva knew Sterling Holloway was likely a sharp, but expensive, shark. She needed an ethical whale, a lawyer who specialized in elder law and had a moral compass. She spent the entire afternoon consulting 3 different firms, rejecting 2 immediately for their overly cautious approach. She finally found Atticus Rourke, a man with a weathered face and an office filled with dusty, well-read law books. He listened patiently as Minerva recounted the entire saga, from the initial loans to the heirloom integrity clause, and the threat of conservatorship. Atticus leaned back, his eyes narrowed in a professional assessment that gave Minerva confidence. "Mrs. Thorne," he said, his voice grave, "what they are attempting is a classic, textbook case of elder financial abuse compounded by an attempted unlawful institutional action. The fact that they inserted that clause themselves and are now weaponizing it against you, while simultaneously slandering your reputation, is incredibly damning. We can turn their strategy on its head." He validated her actions, confirming she had done the right thing, freezing the accounts. "Your first priority is airtight documentation. Every text, every email, every witness, every dollar amount you quantified, we need it indexed and notarized. Your second priority is security and legal fortification. We file a counterclaim for financial abuse immediately. We don't wait for their petition." He advised her to treat the house like a fortress. New bank, new locks, and absolute non-contact with the abusers. His counsel was the solid ground Minerva needed in the legal tempest. Minerva immediately took physical steps to establish new control. She opened accounts at a credit union miles away from her previous bank, ensuring Reginald and Desdemona had no residual access or influence. A locksmith arrived that evening and changed every lock, replacing the standard hardware with high-security, tamper-proof mechanisms. She installed a sophisticated, motion-activated camera system covering the entire perimeter of her property. The next morning, she reached out to her social ally, the army she would need, Octavia Dubois. Octavia was Minerva's former colleague, a retired history professor known for her powerful intellect and her ferocious loyalty. She was also the leader of Minerva's book club and neighborhood association, a powerful networker. Minerva met Octavia at the local botanical garden. Octavia listened to the story with mounting indignation, her regal posture only tightening with every detail. "They have committed the unforgivable sin, Minerva," Octavia declared, her voice resonating with theatrical finality. "They have mistaken a gift for a right. They have confused your boundless love with your willingness to be a fool. This isn't just about money. It's about the soul. They are attempting to erase your agency." Octavia offered more than just emotional validation. She offered solidarity and intel. "Beatrice Reynolds has been talking quite a bit. But you know what? Most of us are seeing through it. Reginald and Desdemona have always been the type to measure a person's worth by their assets. Your friends, Minerva, know your heart. We are your army. When this goes to court, we will testify to your competence, your character, and their endless grasping nature. You are not alone." With the legal and social fortresses established, Minerva undertook her transformation. 4 years, every spare dollar, every personal desire, had been sacrificed for her family's supposed needs. Now she took Atticus Rourke's advice: act like a woman who is completely in control. She made an appointment with the finest salon in the city. Her silver hair, usually neatly confined, was expertly cut and styled into a sophisticated modern shape. She went to a tailor and bought 2 new, exquisitely cut suits, not expensive, but elegant and authoritative. She treated herself to a pair of excellent leather driving gloves and a new pair of reading glasses, discarding the frayed, chipped pair she'd worn for years. This wasn't vanity. It was psychological armor. It was an external manifestation of the inner woman who had reclaimed her autonomy. When she looked in the mirror, she no longer saw the kindly grandmother they sought to infantilize. She saw a woman of formidable dignity and purpose. The harassment started immediately after she ignored Reginald's first 24 texts. He started sending increasingly desperate, then threatening, emails. Desdemona began driving slowly past the house every evening, sometimes parking for an hour down the street, an unnerving, silent intimidation tactic. The calls started late at night, often silent or ending with a mumbled accusation of betrayal. Minerva did not engage. She documented. She logged every date, time, and content of every communication, forwarding it all to Atticus Rourke. "They're panicking," Atticus told her. "The freeze on their cash flow is forcing their hand, but they're making mistakes. This level of harassment is excellent for our case." He advised Minerva to immediately seek a civil harassment restraining order. The judge granted a temporary order quickly, finding the pattern of financial demands followed by threats and stalking sufficient grounds. The moment the papers were served, the harassment ceased, but the silence was more ominous than the noise. Reginald's final brief text, before the service rendered further contact illegal, flashed on her screen. "You think a piece of paper will stop us? We'll find a way to prove you're unstable. We will make sure the court sees the truth. You'll hear from the state." The next morning, Minerva received a formal letter from the County Adult Protective Services. A social worker, Ms. Clara Jensen, would be conducting a mandatory wellness check at her residence within 48 hours, following an anonymous report detailing signs of severe emotional distress, financial recklessness, and vulnerability to self-neglect. Minerva's heart leaped. They had raised the stakes, escalating the conflict from a civil property dispute to a full-blown institutional attack on her sanity and welfare. They were using the state's legitimate protective apparatus as a weapon of malice, betting that the shame and complexity of a government investigation would break her resolve. She was no longer just fighting for her money. She was fighting for her freedom, her reputation, and her very identity. The letter from Adult Protective Services, APS, was a cold, official confirmation of Reginald and Desdemona's ruthless strategy. They were exploiting the system designed to protect the vulnerable. Minerva immediately contacted Atticus Rourke, who advised her to remain calm and treat the visit not as an interrogation, but as an opportunity to present a counter-narrative. The institutional attack began exactly on time. Ms. Clara Jensen, the social worker, was a woman of professional neutrality, her face unreadable. She arrived precisely at 10 a.m., clipboard in hand. Minerva, impeccably dressed and composed, did not allow Ms. Jensen into the house alone. Atticus Rourke was already seated in the living room, a silent, authoritative presence. "Ms. Jensen, thank you for fulfilling your duty," Atticus began smoothly, standing to shake her hand. "I am counsel for Mrs. Thorne. We understand this visit is prompted by an anonymous and highly malicious report. For the sake of transparency, we wish to address all allegations directly." Ms. Jensen, clearly surprised by the lawyer's presence, adjusted her approach. She began the standard questions: Minerva's ability to manage her hygiene, her finances, her diet, and her home maintenance. Minerva answered with articulate precision, demonstrating a keen awareness of her daily schedule and finances. When Ms. Jensen inevitably brought up the report of financial recklessness, Minerva did not hesitate. "Ms. Jensen, I have provided my counsel with extensive documentation concerning the individuals who filed this report. My granddaughter, Desdemona Vance, and her husband, Reginald Vance," Minerva stated, her voice clear and firm. Atticus slid a neat binder across the table. This binder contains a complete record of the past 5 years of documented elder financial abuse perpetrated by the reporting parties. It includes detailed wire transfer receipts, evidence of outstanding loans totaling over $75,000 that were used to bankroll their speculative ventures, and the explicit text message threats made by Mr. Vance when Mrs. Thorne finally terminated their access to her accounts. He opened the binder to the central page, the Heirloom Integrity Clause, drafted by Desdemona. Most critically, Ms. Jensen, it contains the legal draft where Ms. Vance inserted a clause prohibiting Mrs. Thorne from selling her own house. A clause she is now attempting to use as proof of Mrs. Thorne's incompetence to manage her assets. This is not a case of an elderly woman at risk. It is a case of two highly manipulative, financially desperate individuals weaponizing state resources to facilitate a conservatorship and subsequent inheritance theft. Ms. Jensen spent a full hour reviewing the meticulous evidence. The contrast between the vague, anonymous accusations and Minerva's highly quantified, legally documented counter-narrative was stark. The professional neutrality in the social worker's eyes began to shift, replaced by a distinct expression of distaste for the Van Cess. As she prepared to leave, Ms. Jensen looked directly at Minerva. "Mrs. Thorne, based on my assessment and the documentation provided, I can see no evidence of self-neglect, cognitive decline, or vulnerability to financial exploitation on your part. In fact, your actions to secure your assets and seek legal counsel demonstrate exceptional foresight and protective capability. I will be closing this investigation and noting in the official file that the report appears to be a case of malicious fabrication." The institutional attack had not only failed but had spectacularly backfired, forcing APS to question the Van Cess motives and validating Minerva's control. The setback with APS only fueled the Van Cess desperation, leading them to the falsification of evidence. They knew the conservatorship petition would fail without compelling medical or professional testimony. 2 weeks later, Atticus received the Van Cess final submission to the court. Tucked into the filing was a sworn affidavit from Dr. Peter Lowell, a reputable but overwhelmed geriatric physician, stating that Mrs. Thorne exhibited signs of memory impairment and emotional volatility during a brief, unsupervised visit earlier this year, making her a potential candidate for supervised financial management. Minerva was stunned. She had seen Dr. Lowell for a routine physical 6 months ago, but the visit was unremarkable. She had certainly never exhibited emotional volatility. "This is impossible," Minerva insisted to Atticus. "I was perfectly lucid." He must have been misled. Atticus confirmed that Dr. Lowell was known to delegate routine follow-up calls to his overwhelmed administrative staff. "They haven't falsified the signature, Minerva. They've likely distorted the context. They probably got a staff member to sign off based on a vague, leading question, or they tricked the doctor into signing a pre-written form during a busy hour." Minerva took a deep breath. She had to confront the source of the misinformation directly to obtain a retraction, or the affidavit would hold weight in court. She drove straight to Dr. Lowell's clinic. She avoided the reception desk and, feigning an emergency, managed to intercept Dr. Lowell as he was leaving his office for lunch. "Dr. Lowell," Minerva said, holding the document, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "You signed this affidavit for Desdemona Vance. It claims I showed signs of memory impairment. I need to know why." Dr. Lowell, a tired man in his early 60s, looked genuinely distressed as he read the document. "Mrs. Thorne, I don't recall this specific document. My paralegal often brings me dozens of forms to sign during my lunch hour. Wait. I do remember Desdemona Vance calling. She was very insistent, asking if I had any concerns about your stress levels during that last visit. I recall mentioning you seemed a bit stressed about family finances. Who isn't these days? But I absolutely never said anything about memory impairment or emotional volatility. This is a gross misrepresentation of my clinical notes." Minerva looked him directly in the eye. "Dr. Lowell, this document is being used to strip me of my rights and my home. You were misled by my greedy family. Your signature, however, is a matter of record. I need you to understand the severity of this. I need a retraction, notarized and immediate, stating you were provided false information and that your professional opinion supports my full cognitive function." Dr. Lowell, realizing the potential professional jeopardy of allowing his signature to support a fraudulent conservatorship, looked horrified. "Mrs. Thorne, I apologize deeply. I will call Atticus Rourke immediately. You will have the retraction by the end of the day." With the retraction secured, Atticus moved to solidify the core defense, irrefutable proof of Minerva's sharp mind. The protagonist submitted to a neutral psychiatric/cognitive assessment. Atticus arranged for Minerva to be examined by Dr. Eleanor Brandt, a globally respected neuropsychologist with no connection to either party. The assessment lasted 4 intensive hours, involving complex memory tests, executive function evaluations, and a thorough psychiatric interview. When the results arrived, Atticus called Minerva with unbridled satisfaction. "Minerva, the report is gold." Dr. Brandt concluded that not only is there no evidence of cognitive decline, dementia, or any form of emotional instability, but she specifically noted your cognitive function, particularly in financial and critical reasoning, is above average for your demographic and highly consistent with a lifelong pattern of sharp intellectual engagement. She even remarked that your detailed documentation of the abuse was a sign of meticulous, proactive problem-solving. This report completely annihilates their petition. The army gathers and final grief. Minerva met with her allies, Eliza Finch, Octavia Dubois, and 3 other fiercely loyal friends from her book club. They gathered in Octavia's elegant study, the air thick with determined camaraderie. "We are ready, Minerva," Octavia announced, placing a comforting hand on Minerva's arm. "We have all drafted our statements. We will testify to the decades of manipulation, their repeated financial demands, and your unwavering competence. We will expose the Van Cess for the vultures they are." Minerva looked at her friends, her army, her chosen family. In their eyes, she saw not pity, but respect and solidarity. It was in that moment of profound support that the final wave of grief hit her. The loss was not of the house or the money, those were material, but the irreversible death of familial love. She had spent a lifetime nurturing Desdemona and Reginald, offering unconditional love and assistance, only to be repaid with calculated, vicious betrayal. She stepped out onto Octavia's porch, taking a deep, shuddering breath. The fight had become a moral crusade, but it had come at a terrible, permanent cost. The people she loved, the people who had claimed her name, were gone, replaced by enemies. She was finally free from the parasitic relationship, but the emancipation was purchased with the absolute, agonizing certainty that her relationship with that branch of her family was dead, without hope of resurrection or repentance. This was the final acceptance. The fight was irreversible. Just as Minerva walked back inside, resolute and hardened, Atticus Rourke called. "Minerva, they've been served the cognitive assessment and the doctor's retraction, but they are doubling down in sheer arrogance and desperation. The court just finalized the date. The final summons for the conservatorship trial has been issued for next Tuesday. We've won the pre-trial battles, but we still have to stand before the judge. Your freedom, your dignity, and your entire future are now fully in the hands of the legal system." The courtroom, sterile and intimidating, felt less like a place of justice and more like a theatrical arena where Minerva's life was on trial. Desdemona and Reginald sat across the aisle, their faces drawn and pale, their expensive suits failing to mask the cold desperation in their eyes. Sterling Holloway, the Van Cess lawyer, looked supremely confident, relying on the sheer weight of the institutional process to overrule the facts. The proceedings began with Holloway painting a grim picture of Minerva, an elderly woman, suddenly erratic, susceptible to undue influence, and threatening to liquidate the ancestral home, a threat he claimed was proof of her instability. He tried to introduce the initial unsigned draft of the will containing the heirloom integrity clause as evidence of her contradictory impulses. Atticus Rourke dismantled the case with surgical precision. He presented Dr. Brandt's cognitive assessment, the report of above-average mental competence, which landed like a seismic shock. He introduced Dr. Lowell's notarized retraction, exposing the Van Cess direct manipulation of medical evidence. Then came the army of allies, Octavia Dubois and Eliza Finch, whose measured, eloquent testimonies detailed the Van Cess' constant financial demands, their pattern of borrowing, and their consistent public slandering of Minerva's mental state. Finally, Atticus called Minerva Thorne to the stand. The room hushed. Minerva, dressed in her new, authoritative blue suit, sat tall. Holloway tried to rattle her with questions about her financial history and the $75,000 she had given the Van Cess, attempting to frame the transactions as chaotic generosity. "Mrs. Thorne," Holloway pressed, his voice dripping with false sympathy, "isn't it true that you repeatedly gave large sums of money to your granddaughter and her husband, only to now suddenly decide this was abuse, when they stopped you from making a potentially devastating mistake by selling the house?" Minerva looked at the judge, Judge Elias Vance, no relation to the Van Cess across the room, a formidable man known for his integrity. She did not look at Holloway or her accusers. "Your Honor," Minerva began, her voice steady and clear, carrying the weight of 72 years of lived truth. The petition before this court is not about my mental competence. Dr. Brandt's report settles that. This trial is a moral judgment on the greed, entitlement, and cruelty of Reginald and Desdemona Vance. She paused, allowing the gravity of her statement to settle. Yes, I gave them large sums of money. I saw it as supporting family. I saw it as investing in their future. But their needs were endless, and their gratitude was zero. They viewed my house, my life savings, and my fundamental generosity not as a gift, but as an inexhaustible, inherited resource they had a right to exploit. She turned her gaze, momentarily, directly onto Desdemona. Desdemona flinched. When I finally said no, when I finally drew a boundary and froze the accounts, a perfectly rational, self-protective action, they did not accept it. They did not apologize. They escalated. They started a public campaign to destroy my reputation. They fabricated medical evidence, and they filed this malicious petition to declare me legally incompetent. They used a clause my granddaughter tricked me into reviewing, a clause that guaranteed I could never sell my house, as the central evidence of my supposed senility. Minerva leaned slightly forward, her demeanor radiating cold, righteous fire. The truth, Your Honor, is that I am of sound mind, and my decision to cut them off is the clearest proof of my competence. I have had to fight for my freedom in the twilight of my life, not against a failing mind, but against the relentless avarice of the people who were supposed to love me. They are not here to protect me. They are here to confiscate my dignity. And my dignity, Your Honor, is not for sale. The courtroom remained utterly silent. Judge Vance studied the evidence, the cognitive report, the retracted affidavit, the financial documentation, the testimony of the allies, then looked at the Vances. The climax was swift and devastating. Judge Vance cleared his throat and delivered the verdict. The court has reviewed the overwhelming evidence. The petitioner's request for a conservatorship of the estate of Minerva Thorne is hereby denied in its entirety. He continued, his voice ringing with judicial severity. Furthermore, the court finds that the petition was brought forth without legal merit and appears to be based on a pattern of documented financial exploitation and malicious intent. The conduct of Reginald and Desdemona Vance, in attempting to weaponize legal proceedings and government agencies against a demonstrably competent relative for financial gain, is reprehensible. The ruling was crushing. The judge imposed severe sanctions, ordering the Vances to pay all of Minerva Thorne's legal fees incurred in defending the petition. He then made the victory absolute. A permanent restraining order is hereby issued, prohibiting Reginald Vance and Desdemona Vance from contacting Minerva Thorne or approaching her residence or workplace indefinitely. The villain's collapse was immediate and total. As the gavel slammed, Reginald jumped up, shouting, "This is impossible. She's lying. We need that money," before his own lawyer yanked him back down, whispering furiously. Desdemona burst into tears, not of remorse, but of sheer financial ruin. They had spent thousands on the failed legal gambit, and now they owed Minerva's substantial legal bill. Their reputation was irrevocably damaged, their financial lifelines were severed, and their relationship with Minerva was legally forbidden. Minerva watched them, not with triumph or hatred, but with a profound, quiet detachment. The cycle of abuse was closed. The anger had dissipated, leaving only the cool satisfaction of justice served. They were reduced to the consequences of their own actions. Defeated, indebted, and barred forever from her life and her assets. Peace and the moral of the story followed. The epilogue unfolded over the next 6 months. Minerva sold the house. She wasn't forced to, but she realized the place, once a home filled with loving memories of Alistair, had become a battlefield and a shrine to her own self-sacrifice. She used the equity to purchase a beautiful, sun-filled condominium near the coast, precisely where she had always dreamed of living. She traveled with Eliza and Octavia, visiting the great museums of Europe, laughing and finally spending her money on experiences, not on the Vances debt. She took up painting, a hobby she had shelved 40 years ago to focus on family needs. Her life was quieter, richer, and exponentially more joyful. The space once occupied by fear, resentment, and endless financial anxiety was now filled with peace and genuine connection with her true allies. The younger, less financially stable grandson, the one she had originally intended to help, remained her only beneficiary and her devoted contact. One evening, sitting on her new balcony, watching the sunset over the water, Minerva reflected on the terrifying battle she had won. She spoke the final hard-won moral out loud, addressing the empty air, but truly addressing the woman she once was. They tried to steal my house, but they ended up giving me back my life. They tried to prove I was incompetent, but they only proved my mind was sharp enough to recognize, confront, and defeat their betrayal. True freedom is not found in financial security alone. It is choosing who deserves your time, your emotional investment, and, yes, every single dollar of your hard-earned money. Never let generosity be mistaken for a permanent weakness. Never let love override your self-preservation. And that is the story of Minerva Thorne, a woman who proved that wisdom and courage are the most powerful weapons against betrayal. The Van Cess thought they had her trapped, but they underestimated the dignity of a woman finally fighting for herself. The consequences were permanent, just like the peace she finally earned. Did this story resonate with you? Have you ever had to draw a hard line with family or friends whose greed became destructive? What would you have done the moment Desdemona slipped that clause into the will? Let me know your thoughts and insights in the comments below. And if you are ready for more tales of injustice, suspense, and the ultimate triumph of quiet strength, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't miss the next chapter in the Amália Diaries.